Ringnalda Podcast, episode 8. Like I said, right now we are in the month of July. By the time this air, we'll be in the month of August. My right-hand guy always here with us, good Corbin Perry in the building, and our special guest, Miss Kathy Ulberg. We want to say thank you for joining us on this show and having you here. It's definitely a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to come.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So getting started in this show and different things like that. So I know typically we start off by kind of going off whatever our past goals was. The reason we do that more so is to allow entrepreneurs just like us to be able to set those goals, follow up with them. And it's funny that I mentioned I was actually just talking to Monica, my daughter, and I'm like, you have to set goals, small goals, not nothing to overwhelm you or anything like that, but it's a good thing to get that in habit. So as you get older, it becomes second nature. You know what I'm saying?
Attainable goals, realistic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You kind of need that to stay busy and productive as an adult. And it's crazy, as a kid, you kind of, with all the things they can get a hold to these days. So saying that, Corbin, you mind starting off and just kind of going off what your past goal was?
I think our last goal we talked about was kind of our search pages, wasn't it?
Landing pages.
Yeah, I think we were talking about our kind of putting together those, which is great timing because we just finished. Really, I would say our first page.
Yep.
A lot of these pages are going to be reusable or templated in some sense. So, so let's see a quick recap on that. We talked about wanting to improve our presence on Google, and in an effort to do that, we've done some research and found that what we needed to do was pretty much to have some targeted pages towards different areas and having those keywords like home inspection, for example, in such and such areas, so Grand Rapids, Byron Center, Ada, I think were our three top, we had found that people were already searching for those areas through the Google tools and decided we would kind of focus on those first. So we just finished our Grand Rapids page this week, and I actually think I just hit the publish button on that yesterday, so that's officially live. So the hope with that is that when people are searching for home inspections in a certain city, we've got enough information on that page after, say, 3 to 6 months is what I hear. So we'll kind of we'll keep tabs on that and see if that's realistic. But we should hopefully see after 3 to 6 months. Some of those searches, the results for those searches kind of start to move up. I'd say we're a few pages back right now, but we didn't really have anything that was specifically targeting those phrases and those things. So that was kind of our goal, was to really come up with some content that was useful, not too generic, and we'll capture those search results on a page that looks nice and can hopefully just kind of increase our status on Google as everybody wants. So when we did the research, we didn't find a lot of competition for those phrases, surprisingly. I mean, we have a lot of inspection companies in this area. I hope I'm not sharing too much from right now. You're too late already. You're too late if you're watching. We just found that there is definitely competition in inspection companies, but there wasn't a ton of companies that seem to be focused on that effort of really trying to do that. So just like with everything else I feel like we've done over the past 2 or 3 years, I've started to see other companies in the area do some logo redesigns. I've seen some increased media posting and things like that from our competitors. So that's all good because competition's healthy, right?
Agreed.
That's all good.
On top of your toes.
No ill will to any competitors or anything. But we just hoping that effort is fruitful, and I think it will be. I think we did a really good job on them. So
agreed.
I think hopefully I guess we can kind of touch on that next few episodes. We'll be checking on it, I'm sure, every couple weeks or month to month. So update people on where that's at, and maybe post some of those pages so we can get some. Kathy shares all our social media posts anyways. Thank you.
Back to back.
So we'll post maybe some of those and get some traffic and get some feedback on those. But I think I can't remember if we had anything else. I think we kind of had a shared goal last time because we were catching back up from missing a week. We did miss one because we had a little shorter episode with Ricardo. We didn't have a chance to catch up or set any on that one, so we kind of reset on the last one, I think, and that was it. We were kind of talking about that, and I think we had some other efforts, but I think that was the primary goal for sure. So I would say we check that box.
Agreed.
For sure.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So the thing that Corbin is actually talking about, if you remember, so just to let our viewers know, me and you actually met about a year and a half ago. Yeah. Gary Davis has actually expected him and his wife Leandria's house, and then he was telling me about Ignite Leads, a program that yourself and Will, what's Will's last name?
Ellis,
guys started. You guys were really a part of another B&I group. You were originally part of another B&I group, and you kind of came up with your own idea, concept, and moved that into Ignite Leads, which wonderful program that it was.
Yeah, thank you.
It is. So saying that, we met through there, and to keep going forward with the, I was mentioning to you about how we can continue to get business, but away from realtor referrals. That's what we're really focusing on, and that what that Google and the landing pages is really doing. I don't know if you remember that or not.
Yeah.
But those were really the things I was talking about. Really asking for ideas. How can we want to continue getting referrals through realtors, but at some point it's like, what if the realtors start referring you? That's not a good business concept. Right. It's a good referral-based concept.
You can't put everything in one basket.
Exactly, and I think we're going to be the head inspection company to really do that and break away from them things and stuff like that. So,
well, I give kudos to you because a lot of times, when you're an entrepreneur, self-employed, you want to do everything yourself, right?
Yeah.
And some of your skills might not be what he's providing for you. So I always say all of us are smarter than one of us, right? So if you can't build your business, you've got to hire people in to come and help you build your business.
Agreed.
And I see there's a lot of entrepreneurs where they don't do that. They kind of like, I've got to do it all myself, and there's always going to be a roadblock because they're never going to be able to keep going farther than what they could because they're trying to do everything themselves.
Yes, ma'am.
So I give you a lot of kudos for doing that. I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
I really am.
I really appreciate that, Ms. Kathy. It's like I said, Corbin, we known each other for 4 years pretty much now, and I didn't experience things with him that I haven't experienced with people I didn't know my entire life. We didn't have conversations or just kind of been able to grow together. So everybody in my 250 project know about you. They know about Savannah, Andrew, knew about Marcus and growing his team. But I guess that's really growing up and playing sports. You always knew basketball, football, you need a team to, to make it happen. Yeah. So when me and Corbin met, it just kind of meshed. He was Shaq, I was Kobe, or vice versa, and it just kind of went like that. But do you have any particular goals right now that you're necessarily pursuing, or?
Yeah, well, I work for Ringnalda TenHaken Insurance, so I'm their insurance producer for them for personal lines for property and casualty, so auto, home, life, and umbrella. So I don't own the business, but I definitely work hard for them because I am very passionate what I do.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think for me, I always set goals. I get very frustrated if my numbers are staying the same. I'm like, you never want to, put yourself in park, maybe in neutral for a little bit, and then kind of reevaluate and get it back and drive again, right? Yeah. So my goals this year is to open up more of a contact sphere, to get to know more mortgage lenders. Who compliments me? Who compliments insurance, home insurance? Well, that's going to be realtors, it's going to be bankers, it's going to be mortgage lenders. Those are the type of people that are going to complement. We're going to complement each other. So again, with referrals is great, but I can't put all of that into one basket and say I'm just going to wait for my clients to give my name out. So that's probably really one of my main goals this year. Another one is, I have 3 grandchildren that have a lot of health issues, and so I want to provide them money that if there's any type of equipment that they need, it's available for them. So that's kind of my goal, is the more quotes I can get, the more business I can earn.
Agreed.
And then the more commission I can gather, and then I'm going to set aside a account for them and put that money into that account. So it's kind of a twofold. But I definitely enjoy what I do, but I'm not one. As a matter of fact, my bosses always tell me, you're doing good, you're doing good. And I'm like, I'm really frustrated. You know, I feel like I did the same thing last month I did the month before. And again, I'm just not one to sit in neutral or go in reverse. It's got to be put it in park for a few minutes, examine what's going on, what can we change, and then hit it and drive again. Yeah. So.
Agreed.
So to touch base upon that, I think everything you have said was very inspirational. We appreciate you sharing those things with us and everything like that, Miss Kathy. And so saying that, I know one of the goals also I think that we possibly talked about was, so I actually graduated from the 250 project, which I mentioned a minute ago.
And I'm not sure what the 250 project is.
So it's pretty much a spinoff of Spring GR.
Okay.
Spring GR is pretty much a 90-day business course. You pretty much go in there and learn about your business, what you need to know, who your target customer is, how, elevated pitches and all of these different things. And then 250 project is, okay, the businesses who persevered through that, doing well now you at a phase, right? How do we get you to that next phase? And that's pretty much where we at. So the 250 project is pretty much a program that was built for like minority businesses to get to that 250 mark and kind of above.
So 50,000 to be
okay.
clear.
Okay. I kind of figured that one. Yeah. Okay.
So that's the overall goal with that.
Which I thought was interesting because it does seem like there's an interesting for a lot of businesses or entrepreneurs is like there's quite a difference between that, say just the 6-figure mark, say 100,000, and then getting to like 250,000. It is a huge leap, not just in. It's a huge leap in business, even more so in effort, I think, than it is income, and it does probably depend on the business, obviously, too.
As a goal set in mind, I think, too, because you kind of hit it too about having goals. I was a Mary Kay sales director for 14 years. And earned my first car in 8 months, became a director in 10 months, not knowing what the heck I was doing. But I had a goal, and it was a target that I was going after. And this month has got to be this month's got to be that, because at the end of this period of time, this is where I need to be.
That's right.
So I think, goals are very, very important, and I think some people are afraid to set them because of the failure that it might happen.
For sure.
Right? So, Mary Kay asked you to say, well, if you fall, wipe off the knees and get back up again. It's more falls you have, the more successful you're going to be, because you're going to learn from those falls.
Get the falls out of the way.
Yeah.
Get them up.
I used to tell my Mary Kay beauty consultants in my unit, the more no's you get, you're doing good. And they're like, I want to hide under a rock. I'm like, no, you're doing good. It's the people that give up too soon miss those great opportunities. I had some no's, and if I would have let one person have that much power in my future by quitting, I wouldn't have earned my first car in 8 months.
That's for sure. Yeah.
Go on. Let's go more into your background, Ms. Kathy. If you don't mind sharing with the viewers exactly kind of what you do, maybe where you from, how you kind of got started in what you do.
I'm actually from New York City.
Yes, ma'am.
From Queens.
Yeah.
So I was born and raised in New York, and I was dragged to Jenison, Michigan when I was 14.
Yes, ma'am.
Literally dragged.
Wow.
And the school system was getting bad in New York, and so my parents felt it was time for us to relocate. So my dad sold the house, sold our toys, sold everything, and pretty much packed us all up. And we have family in Michigan, family in Texas, and said, hey, let's go to Michigan and visit there first in January. Like, who comes to Michigan in January?
Much better than New York, I guess.
I know, right?
Yeah, they're both pretty rough.
Yeah, so we came to visit in January for a couple of weeks, and we ended up staying, got enrolled into school in Jenison, and that was the year of the big storm that came in. It was like 1978.
Oh, wow.
I'm giving my age.
So welcome to Michigan.
Yeah, so we ended up staying, and then I got enrolled in the school system, and again, I for the first year it was a huge struggle. It was a complete culture shock to me. I mean, Jenison has minors. I was used to the subway, city bus. Big Mets fan. I was always at Shea Stadium with a bunch of my buddies because I never had girlfriends. I always had friends that were guys, because I was a big tomboy. So doing Mary Kay was definitely, Mary Kay Cosmetics was not on my list. So that's how I got here.
Yes, ma'am.
And shortly after high school, I started college, and then my car broke down, and then I had to move back home again, and yeah, that kind of sucked. But so I don't have a college education, but I got married. I had 4 children. They're all grown and married and have their own kids. Very involved in my local church. And got hired in as a children's ministry director at my church.
Oh, how long have you been doing that?
I was doing that for about 14 years on staff.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. Yeah. I never knew that about you.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep. So my pastor called me in, and I thought I was in big trouble. I'd go to the principal's office, but he called me into the pastor's office and said, we want you to take over our children's ministry. So I did that for about 14 years. And it wasn't paying enough. You're part-time, full-time, and your reward's in heaven someday. It's not in your paycheck.
Yes, ma'am.
So I started Mary Kay to make some extra money, and so that's where that came along. I got some really phenomenal training through Mary Kay Cosmetics.
Sales training, marketing?
Sales training, marketing, all of that. But I think I've always had, some type of talent, hidden talent there, I guess, in selling and sales. So how I got into the insurance industry is kind of a strange thing, but when I was a senior in high school at Jenison, they had junior achievement. If you know, ever heard of that?
Yeah, I remember junior achievement.
So my dad worked at Foremost Insurance. He was
That's something like Amway or something like that, isn't it? Junior achievement, I thought it was.
Well, junior achievement is an organization where they come to the high school, and a business will sponsor a group of kids at a school. They come up with their own product.
Yeah.
They teach them how to run a business.
Yeah.
Okay. So my dad worked at Foremost Insurance as a computer programmer, and it was my senior year. I was a huge athlete, loved sports.
What sports did you play?
Softball, track, volleyball. Wow. Yeah. So
that's what's up.
So my dad was not into sports. So he said, "Hey, Kathy,
isn't track?" I didn't mean to cut you off. Isn't track and softball in the same season?
Well, I would do traveling softball.
Oh, got you. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to mess up the story.
Georgetown Little League, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So my dad said, "Hey, Kathy, it's your senior year in high school. Can we spend a little bit more time together?" I'm like, "Well, you're not going to come to my sports event, so what are you doing, Dad?" And he says, "I'm going to do junior achievement. Will you do it with me?" And I'm like, "Oh man, do I have to? Okay, I will." So it's my senior year, and Foremost was our sponsor. Foremost Insurance was our sponsor.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so we had to come up with our own product.
Yep.
I was the marketing and sales position in our group. There was about, I think, 15 of us kids from Jenison Christian, locally in that area. So we came up with our own product, was insurance. I mean, our sponsor is Foremost Insurance. Right. We're going to sell insurance. So we sold accident, death, and dismemberment insurance. Loved it. Oh, wow. I got very interested in it. Sold insurance to the president of Foremost Insurance in 1984. I was 17 years old, and he bought accident, death, and dismemberment for all of his employees. And at that time, we didn't have computers with PowerPoint. We had flip charts. So I went and presented him the benefits of having accident, death, and dismemberment for all of his employees, and he bought it. The president, Mr. Riebel, was his name at the time. I'm sure he's passed away because he was an older gentleman back then. So from there, I won the West Michigan area for junior achievement for marketing and sales, and then I went and competed on a national level for marketing and sales. So they would literally give us a product, and we'd have about 15, 20 minutes to sell it, and 15 minutes, 20 minutes to study it, and then we have to go sell it, and they'd have judges how we're presenting it. Sure. So I got very interested in insurance then. When I got married, I was 20 when I got married. We bought our first house. I had life insurance because I thought if he dies, I need the house paid off, right? Sure. So I was very, very interested in insurance for a very, very long time. And when I started Mary Kay in my B&I group,
yes, ma'am,
there was a gal who owns her own State Farm office. And she had asked me, would you come on part-time and just kind of help me out? You're great with service. You're sales director Mary Kay, so you have top-notch service. You know how to talk to people on the phone and book appointments. So I did that for about 18 months, worked for her, and it drove me crazy because I was sitting at a desk and waiting for calls to come in, and I'm the out, let's get out, let's meet people, let's bring the business in.
There's no goals in that for you either.
There's nothing
you can really take
and I'm
from
used to working for myself. You know, Mary Kay, you're self-employed. You know, there's no glass ceiling. You can go as high as you want.
Sure.
You know, it's all on you, nobody else. So, so I stepped down as a children's ministry director, worked for her with State Farm for about 18 months, still doing my Mary Kay business, and then RTI came in the picture. So they approached me, I put in an application, they hired me, and I've enjoyed it ever since. Again, I don't own the business, but there's no cap for me. I can do as much as I want, as less as I want. What do you want your paycheck to be this month, Kathy? And I go out there and do it.
Maybe the best of both worlds. You don't have to worry about the high-end business logistics and that sort of thing, but you still kind of have your own business in that sense. Yeah.
So, and I got into it too because insurance industry too, because about 22 years ago, I think it was, my husband and I got sued in an auto accident. It was a complete fraud. Michigan is probably one of the top states for fraud.
For auto specifically?
Yes.
Auto accidents?
Like 1 out of 5.
How does that happen if has it always been no fault?
Well, there's no fault, but you can still sue someone. So what happened was he was up at Baldwin going bow hunting in December with my boys, slid through a stop sign on a county road. Car came by a pickup truck came by with a plow on it, and they collided. Maybe going 5-10 miles an hour. He was actually trying to ditch it. It was a sheet of ice.
Sure.
The gentleman jumped out of the vehicle. Hey, looks like you've got the blunt of it. Yeah, my vehicle had $2,400 worth of damage. His plow had a little scratch, but my husband would be at fault because he slid through the stop sign.
Yeah.
County road or not, there was a stop sign. He slid through.
Yeah.
And the gentleman said, hey, let's just call it good. Looks like you got the blunt of the damage. I got a scratch. We're done. So my husband calls me. He says, what should I do? I said, well, I go to Lake County Police Department and report it because you just never know.
Sure.
Never know.
Maybe the guy took a picture of your license plate. You never know. So he went to Lake County, reported it. The police officer said, well, we didn't have anybody come in here. You're good to go. No big deal. So 7-8 months went by, and the next thing we get a letter from this gentleman's lawyer suing us. His whole life now has changed.
What?
So he probably talked to some of his family and friends and said, hey, there is money to be made here. So I did not know what my auto policy had on it when it came to liability. And I only had $50,000. So, which means that my insurance company that I had at the time would pay $50,000. If this gentleman wanted more than $50,000, guess where it's coming out of?
Your pocket.
My pocket.
How can that? What? How?
So most people do not think about liability issues or being sued.
But you get like up to 2 or 3 years to sue somebody after an accident.
I think so. I don't know what the limitations of time is. So I would say for almost a year, we sat on not knowing if this gentleman was going to take the $50,000 and leave us alone, because your insurance company is going to say, okay, here's our part. Here's the check.
Right.
We're gonna write him a check for $50,000. If he goes beyond that, sorry. So thank goodness the guy only took $50,000 and left us alone.
Was he claiming to have been injured or something?
Yeah,
like
he
that?
did.
Are you
And
serious?
then we come to find out that he was in the military and he was a parachuter, and so I'm thinking maybe he's got back issues from all of that he did. But the insurance companies are going to take the easiest and quickest way out. They're not going to go to court. They're not going. You know what I'm saying? Let's just settle it out of court, and that's exactly what they wanted to do. And so at that point, insurance interests me a whole lot more.
Wow.
And that's one of the reasons. And I had you as a client.
Yes, ma'am.
I think one of the reasons why I explain your coverages. When I quote
you
someone,
do a very good job.
I go line by line, and this is what you have, and this is what's going to help you if you're sued or Yeah.
She does. She does a really good job at that.
I'll call you when we're done.
I got a card.
Now I'm worried.
I know. Yeah, I know. It is.
Yeah.
It is crazy. And last year I took a fraud class and in Grand Rapids, and they were sharing how there are people out there that literally team together to cause an accident. So like if you're in the highway, they'll box you in, and then the gentleman in front will put on his brakes, and you'll hit that gentleman, and there's a car next to you and a car behind you, and they purposely box you in for you to hit.
Oh my God.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
I'm surprised I haven't seen a movie on like something like that yet.
Yeah.
No,
Wow.
They showed us a whole video on different fraud, scenarios that are out there.
That's incredible. I've heard of people.
That's
die,
very
like,
risky though. Why would
It is
I possibly want to get into a car accident, not know what's going to happen, what they're going to do for?
Yeah, that is risky.
Yeah.
I'd hate to be the one that you're planting to.
Because you're not
to
making
hit.
millions out there. I mean, it's not worth it in general, but I'm just saying you get maybe 100,000 and.
And what if the person is like looking at their phone and doesn't stop and then T-bones you and you're.
Yeah.
And now your back is really messed
that
up.
money isn't going to make any difference because your life has changed completely.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right, but they're knowing that they're going to get hit, right?
Yeah.
So they might be slowing down enough where like coming here, traffic was crazy.
Yes,
right?
yes, it is.
So, as a matter of fact, I passed an accident.
Wow.
So it doesn't have to be a huge speed to get out of the back. Just a little bit in the back, do a little bit of damage.
My neck! Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Ooh, it's so stiff.
Back in
Michigan is one of the top.
January, I got reared-ended by probably an 80-year-old man.
Oh no.
It was icy out. He hit me probably at 5 miles per hour. I got a little fender bender. I ain't called. Matter of fact, I did call my insurance. They said, well, deductible. I'm like, well, it's not bad at all. So let's get it done.
Yep.
Made a police report about it. I never thought to myself to ever try to sue that man because I need some extra cash.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
never crossed my mind.
Yep.
So for that to be people's livelihood,
Yep.
that's home students.
Michigan is one of the worst.
Why?
Wow.
I think part of it is there's people that 1 out of 5 drivers in the state of Michigan don't have insurance, for one.
Okay.
Okay. I think part of it is
20%.
That's a lot.
That's staggering.
depending on how you write your auto policy on your medical portion, your PEP coverage, your personal
just changed
injury.
recently,
Yeah,
right?
2 years ago in July it changed.
Right.
So there's a lot of people that are opting out and going with lower limits.
Right.
So it opens them up for more exposure of having to be responsible maybe for paying some medical expenses they don't want to pay.
Right.
And then some people choose, hey, I want my health insurance to pay my auto medical expenses first, if their health insurance does that.
Yeah.
Well, they need to understand you also have to pay your deductible. So if you're having your health insurance pay your medical first, then you have to have your deductible met before they start paying at a higher percentage, right? So what if you have a catastrophic injury and your accident happened in October and you have your health insurance listed as first? So what that means is all of your medical bills are going to go to your health insurance. And your health insurance is going to say, okay, you've got to pay $3,000 co-pays before we start paying. Okay,
Right.
this happened in October, right? So you finally, December comes around, you finally got to that co-pay amount and January kicks in.
Comes around.
And then you have to start all over again.
Right.
Where if people would just, my dad's 85 years old, he's on Medicare, and he says, you know what, I'm not going to have Medicare take care of my auto medical expenses in an injury. I want unlimited for a couple $100 more a year.
Yeah.
Zero deductible.
Yeah.
I don't want to be laying in the hospital bed worrying about how these medical bills are going to get paid.
That's for sure.
So people are starting, they're looking
That's something that happens a lot. That a lot of people are talking about is medical bills.
Yeah, so people are looking at how to cut my cost, and that's one place where they'll cut it. And then, I was injured by somebody, I'm now going to go after you because I can't get this paid through medical, or I've got a lot that I'm going to have to pay because I chose a different route on my PEP coverage.
It is unfortunate that it's so high here. I don't. I want to say, isn't our auto insurance top 5 in the U.S.?
Yeah, we're one of the very
five?
few states that have the no fault, the way our PEP coverage is.
Was the change in that coverage a few years ago in an attempt to in an attempt to alleviate costs for some people in some sense. And
Yeah,
it
because
seems like that wasn't the best choice.
No,
That wasn't the best thing we could do.
Well, I think in the 1970s, the Michigan Catastrophic Claim Association, that's how that got started, is that you would pay a certain amount of money out of your auto policy and it goes to the Michigan Catastrophic Claim Association. When you had medical expenses, it would draw out of that.
Sure.
Well, back then it was just a few dollars. 2 years ago it was $220 per car.
Mm-hmm.
Per car you would pay.
Per month or per year?
Per year. Okay.
Okay,
So,
that's reasonable.
yeah, so this isn't, well, unless you're like a family that I insure who has 7 children and have 10 vehicles. And then you look at $200 per car, and that adds $220 per car adds up, right?
That's not.
So that $220 goes to the Michigan Catastrophic Claim Association. It doesn't go to State Farm, doesn't go to Allstate, goes to the Michigan Catastrophic Claim Association. So when you're in an accident and you have auto as your primary medical to pay your bills, it's going to draw out of there. So 2 years ago, and I think part of it was a political play too.
Yes, ma'am.
2 years ago,
Yeah,
they like to the political, you know, when it's voting time, they like to see where can we get Michiganders some money saved, and so they looked at the auto reform. So it went from $220 per car to like $84 or $86 per car. So there's a savings there.
So we got those checks.
Mm-hmm.
I would have rather had something different happen than get the check.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Well, we got like $400 or something like
There's
that.
nothing free.
I know, yeah, it's like, it's so funny how they
Yeah.
you could just give people a check and somebody could go, okay, yeah, I feel better about that. You know,
Yeah.
like, I didn't feel better about that.
Yeah.
Like, how about I just pay less every month?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really, so how does the state that doesn't have a fund like that?
They go on their medical, so it goes on the insurance medical. So it's interesting when I talk to people that move from out of state into Michigan.
That is interesting.
Yeah, I have to explain the whole how it goes because it's so laid out differently.
I guess it's maybe a blessing and a curse.
It is, you know, it really is, because I know some people that have catastrophic injuries where they're paralyzed from the waist down. They don't have to worry about anything being paid when they had auto unlimited. Everything is paid till they no longer need it paid. Home modifications of the homes will happen, you know, where they need ramps built, and you know, all of those things are covered through their auto insurance, depending on how it's written on their auto policy.
So in some sense, many states don't offer that. Is that right?
Yeah.
I guess I never really understood that. That's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. That is a double-edged sword there in some sense. I guess maybe I would rather pay more and have that be the case. That is after all the point of insurance.
Yeah. It's kind of like darn if you do and darn if you don't. You know, you use it, you're glad you have it, you put a claim in, you're thankful that check came, and then you're back to not liking it again because you used it and your premium went up.
Yeah.
You know, you know, I'm like the taker. You know, I feel bad about that, but you know, I don't have.
Really interesting.
You don't think about those things when you.
No.
I wonder if people who move to different states and relocate, do they think about those type of things?
Probably
because
not.
the families and friends, I know that I never heard those conversations take place.
Yeah.
I just hear that, oh, it's warm, I like the weather, but then you don't, I just learned that you move to California, they take 52% of everything you make. I never knew that until recently on ESPN.
That's so many people are leaving California.
I said, they're taking 52%. That means you only make 48 of $100 that you make. Unless they was lying on ESPN, but
one of the guys depend how you put it together, but I think that the taxes in California overall are higher than any other state in the United States. And
he probably makes a decent amount. You know, he was probably coming from a different perspective, but
there's
even taking anything over what Michigan is taking, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is.
I think no matter what bracket you're in over there, it is just significantly higher. Not to mention that just obviously everything is just more expensive there too. I don't know how people live there, to be honest with you. You could make $40 an hour and it'd probably be like making 20 here. I mean, it's just sucks. That sucks.
Yeah, I just had a brand new client that moved from Knoxville, Tennessee to Michigan, to the Grand Rapids area, and so we needed to do auto and renter's insurance for her. And anytime I call my underwriters on the phone, like, what state are you? Michigan. Oh boy, Michigan. You know, they always say, oh boy, you're unique. Let me get the manual out. You know, so yeah. Anyways.
I guess I'm inclined to think that that's maybe a good thing more than a bad thing. Then I've kind of looked at it as a more of an annoyance, but I've been fortunate that I've not had to utilize a lot of that. So I'm one of those that's paid for my insurance, and the most I've probably used it for is a cracked windshield. But that's what it's for. So that's interesting. That's interesting. I guess I can't even imagine, now that you put it that way, being in an accident and having to, like you said, for example, having to worry about Medicaid or having, let's say, your best coverage, like a lot of people, is catastrophic medical, and the auto doesn't cover it, or you chose to not have the auto cover it, and that is usually terrible insurance. Even though it's good for a catastrophe, most people are on it because they don't have a ton of money, so the deductibles are extremely high, and then that's a whole other problem. So guess I feel better about that now. Interesting. Although I'm not convinced my rate is as low as it could be. So
we'll talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think something we all got in common, that in past or present time, or even current time, we all dealt with homeowners at some point, right? People buying and selling homes. What may be some specific advice that you have for homeowners, or just new homeowners specifically, in regards to getting their home insurance or getting the proper home insurance they need? And I guess that's kind of based on the conversation we was having before we started the show. We was talking about especially a lot of older homes in inner cities, how some major electrical or plumbing, or even new things. You don't mind elaborating on. We talked about like trampoline or certain type of pets that you have may kind of, make an influence of your insurance. So just kind of give us some overall insight on that.
Well, it's interesting. So home insurance, purchasing a home is probably the largest investment you're going to make, right? It's the largest amount of money you're going to be putting on the table, or taking a mortgage loan, right? So mortgage loan, your loan officers are the banks require you to have home insurance if you have a loan. If your house is paid for, you don't need to have home insurance, which I think is crazy not to. Crazy not to. Okay, but that's when we see those My GoFund accounts on Facebook for people who did not have insurance, home insurance, and didn't have renter's insurance, which is crazy. It doesn't make sense to me. So I always think home insurance is the most important second part of buying a home when you get that mortgage. It's going to protect the home, it's going to protect your loan, it's going to protect your assets, it's going to protect your personal property, it's going to protect your liability if you get sued. Okay, so some of the things that I always share with my clients is now we're an independent agency. So RTI, we have several different carriers that we work with. Frankenmuth, Citizens, Pioneer Mutual, Wolverine. We have different carriers. So we're not a captive insurance company like State Farm, Allstate, Farmers Farm Bureau. We can shop around for our clients to get the best premium that fits their needs. So, if you're going to just State Farm, and if you don't fit in that magic little box, your premium might be extremely high. Where if you come to an independent agency like us, we're gonna shop the marketplace for you and find out this Pioneer Mutual is best for you. Citizens is best for you, and we're gonna get you the best competitive price. Okay, so when you're looking at purchasing a home, I will share with you: do not pass on your inspection. I have a young couple that just bought their first home. They had renter's insurance. They didn't tell me that they did this, but they ended up buying a home and passing on the home inspection in Sparta. They bought a home in Sparta, and I asked if I could share this story, and they were comfortable with me sharing it. I'm not going to give names, but I'm going to share the story. And young couple with a 4-month baby girl bought the house with the seller saying, "Hey, it's good, awesome home. You've seen pictures." Did a quick walkthrough, but didn't do an inspection. 30 days later, they took ownership of the home, they moved in, and within 24 to 48 hours, they were sicker than a dog. They were actually coughing up blood. They were sick. They had to get out of the home. Come to find out that it's completely mold, and it was full of rats. Now, they found out that the home was not lived in by the seller for at least 8 to 10 months. So it was vacant. Okay, that was withheld from them when they purchased this home. Right now they're in litigation trying to sue this gentleman because they literally need to gut the whole house out now. They're living with their parents, and they bought this home in April. So I know it's extremely competitive out there to close on a home. My son and my daughter-in-law took almost 2 years to find their house. But you want to make sure you get in a home that's safe, that's okay for you and your family to move into, because then you're in a situation where you're battling the legal end of it all because you bought a home that you can't even live in because it's not, it would not have passed an inspection. So first thing I always tell people is, get that dream home that you want, but make sure that home inspection is done. Listen to your home inspector. I highly recommend you to do that. You've done one of my son's home inspection.
I appreciate it, Ms. Kathy.
The second thing is definitely go on to Facebook and see those tips that you give, those educational tips, because those are things I would share with a client that's looking at buying home insurance. Does it have knob and tube and wiring? A lot of insurance carriers will not cover knob and tube wiring. They're a fire hazard. And if it is issued, where you have a home policy that is issued, they will say, okay, you have 30 days to get that replaced, or 60 days. They'll put a date limit on it. If it is not cared for, they'll cancel your home insurance. And then you're sitting there with a mortgage company saying, you need to have insurance.
Yes, ma'am.
And then you're in a whole different bad place.
What happens then if, let's say hypothetically, you have insurance, you either stop paying it or don't want it anymore, then what? Because necessarily you don't have to. Well, is home insurance through your mortgage necessarily, or no?
Well, a lot of people will have their home insurance escrow. So that means their home insurance, their yearly home insurance premium is added into their mortgage.
Correct. And
their mortgage company is paying for their home insurance.
Gotcha.
Okay. So if there's a cancellation of that home insurance, or there's a lapse of insurance, your mortgage company is going to be notified. And because they have an insurable interest on that home, because they gave you the $250,000 to buy it, right?
Yeah.
So they want to know, if something happens to that home, we're getting our $250,000 out of it.
We're gonna have to squeeze it out of
We'll
that.
have to, so I don't know legally what happens on their end. I just know that if you have a loan, you have to have home insurance. So you have to be really cautious in what type of home you're purchasing. Okay. Now, if that's your dream home and it has knob and tubing in it, just be aware that you're going to need to replace it, or your home insurance is going to be canceled. If you have galvanized plumbing, now a lot of older homes have galvanized plumbing.
Almost 100% of them, pretty much.
What happens with galvanized plumbing is that, my claim adjusters will testify to this. A lot of the leaking that happens is from galvanized plumbing because it rusts from the inside out.
Agreed.
Okay.
You sound like a home inspector.
Yeah, right? I learn a lot, right? So that's another area where, hey, that's your dream home, you want to purchase it, just if it has galvanized plumbing, just know that most likely, especially if it's an older home, our insurance carriers are going to request an inspection on top of yours that you've done for them to purchase the home. They see galvanized plumbing, they're going to say, okay, you've got this amount of time to get it replaced. If not, we're going to cancel the home policy. And then you're scrambling to find someone, and who can insure you is probably your mortgage company, but they're going to charge you an arm and a leg to do it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so there's certain things that you want to definitely look at when you're purchasing a home. Definitely the tips that I've been reading them, I've been sharing them, because I think that says a lot on purchasing a home and purchasing it the correct way. That is your dream home. You're going to go into it. You might need a few things you need to do, paint, just the basic stuff. But to walk into a home and see that 2 days later you're moved out for months because it's got mold and you got sick from it, that's not the route you want to go.
No, ma'am.
Where in that house in Sparta, where was the mold? Do you know? Like, where did they end up finding it?
All over.
That's
probably wasn't vented. Probably had moisture and humidity.
It must have been. I mean, like, did they get as far as like looking in the attic and stuff like that too?
I don't know. This is a young couple, so I think they were doing that. Yes.
Yeah.
It was a ranch style house. They were doing that, battling, competing against purchasing homes, and they're like, this is the one we want. We're gonna pass the inspection and that kind of stuff.
Jeez.
Now you talked a little bit about liability coverages, like dogs or trampolines.
Yes.
Okay, so I did my research on dogs. Okay, so if a dog bites your dog bites another person,
Yes, ma'am.
and they're gonna sue you because of that, it's going to fall on your home insurance liability.
Okay.
Doesn't need to happen on your property. Let's say you're taking your dog for a walk, you're at the park, kid comes up, pets your dog, and the dog bites. And the parents are going to say, you know what? I'm going to sue you for that.
Yes, ma'am.
It's going to fall on your home insurance liability because there are some main coverages on your home insurance, and one of them is liability.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay? So even if it's in your backyard and your dog gets off your backyard and bites another person, they can sue you. So I kind of looked at it and thought, what is the range of somebody suing you for a dog bite? It can start at $1,500 to $1 million. And the percentage of them winning cases are over 94%.
Oh my God. That's almost a guarantee.
So it's almost a guarantee that if you had a dog that bit somebody, and that person and we actually had a case like that. My sister-in-law lives in Zealand. Her neighbor dog came over and bit her. And I mean, scarred her. I mean, it was bad.
Oh, wow.
That's awful.
She could have sued the neighbor,
Yes, ma'am.
but chose not to. She was requesting the neighbor to pay for the medical bills, and they still wouldn't even do that. So out of the goodness of my sister-in-law's heart, she could have turned around and said, I'm suing you, and chose not to. But not everybody out there is like that. Her medical paid for it,
Except for probably a deductible.
the deductible. Yeah. So
She's very lucky.
she's very, very lucky, but there's not that many people out there like that anymore.
Yes, ma'am.
That's incredible. Yeah,
Isn't
I would
it?
have a hard time with that, and I would have a really hard time with that because I do feel to some degree it's a different situation than the guy who got hit with the plow and probably didn't. We can probably safely assume didn't actually get injured. If he did, that's maybe a different situation. Sounds like he probably didn't get injured, but that's a different story. If you get bit by a dog, it's something personal, but I might have to sue you. I mean that's
Yeah.
and I don't expect it to. I guess I don't expect it to like take your livelihood away either. That's why you have the insurance. So
Right.
I'm not suing somebody necessarily to end their livelihood. It's like your dog just bit me.
Pain and suffering. I mean, it took months before my
Yeah.
daughter-in-law or my sister-in-law even felt comfortable going in her own backyard because she was fearful of that dog.
Yeah.
So it was an emotional strain on her as well.
And the dog came to her property and attacked her. That's definitely a loss.
And at the very least, if nothing else, she shouldn't have to pay a dime if she has a deductible or whatever else. She should not have to pay a dime for that. Assuming she probably also lost work. I don't know, maybe her insurance will cover some of that.
Yeah,
If
you
not,
take the shot.
she shouldn't have to take the
yeah.
loss on that.
No.
There's just way too much in there. It's like, hey, nothing necessarily personal.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna have to sue you on that
Yeah.
one, Like,
Yeah. So going back on the home insurance, I have some carriers that, certain dogs is a red flag.
What dogs are those?
I can
Pit
guess.
bulls?
Yeah, I
Okay.
can guess. Yeah.
Doberman, I think, are one of them. It depends on which carrier I'm looking at.
Okay.
Mm.
Some carriers, Huskies,
Okay.
German Shepherds, so some of them,
All the dogs have
Bigger
pretty much
dogs.
been around.
yeah,
bigger
bigger dogs, so it depends on what carrier I'm working with, and it's very hard for me to share that in not a hard reflection to the person I'm talking to. And what I mean by that is some people have a German Shepherd and that's their baby.
For sure.
And I'm saying, okay,
Costing you.
there's going to be a surcharge for that, for that particular dog, because there's a higher risk. They look at the percentages of that particular breed biting, and so there's a surcharge on your home insurance for that. So location also makes a difference. Like if you're on a farm, if I'm doing a country estate, policy, a hobby farm, they can have German Shepherds. yards? I mean, which farm doesn't have a junkyard?
Yeah, like a fenced-in yard. Does that mitigate some of the
some of it depends on where you're located.
Sure.
You know, if you're in a subdivision, you know, they'll and again, it depends on what carrier I'm quoting you
Very
with.
nuanced.
You know, so that's kind of sometimes a very touchy situation when I'm talking to that client, because I don't want them to feel, you know, we don't have anything against you. And some people will say, well, this is my baby, and I said, my dog never bites. Totally understand that. But what I'm saying is the percentage of dogs of that breed is known to bite. And so the insurance company can't say, well, your dog is not going to, when you know what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
so
it's a liability.
It's a liability.
It's like having a wood shop in the house. It's nothing against you being a woodworker. It's that stuff can catch fire and uses a ton of power.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a liability. You can have it. I'm not telling you to get rid of it.
You mean wood burner? Like
but some of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I know sometimes if you have some heavy woodworking equipment inside the house, you know, like some real equipment, I've heard that can kind of be it can be a liability just for fire hazards and things like that. It's heavy equipment, serious stuff.
So trampolines is another, you know, anything that gives you extra exposure,
and
right?
Pools, right?
And pools. Anything that's going to give you extra exposure. So trampolines, all of my carriers that I have will not insure a trampoline unless it has a net around it.
Oh,
it's got to have a net around it. Okay.
It's probably a good idea anyway.
So, well, I kind of looked at, you know, hey, what's the reasoning, you know, for that? Well, 40% of injuries happen on a trampoline.
Yes, ma'am.
100,000 children a year are injured on a trampoline.
100,000.
100,000 children a year are injured.
I can see that.
Hundreds a day.
So it is a high risk where we're talking from, you know, broken arm, leg, injury to the neck, paralyzed. 4% of this 100,000 are children that have to be hospitalized in a year. So there's a high range of what can happen with a trampoline that doesn't have a net around it. So a net gives you more of that coverage to protect from them falling off it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I know some carriers that won't even insure a trampoline. They can have a net around it and want a fence around it on top of that, you know. But our carriers that we have, they want to see a net around it. If there's not a net around it, they're requiring you to get a net.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, so that's another risk. You've got kids that come onto your neighborhood, you know, come onto your backyard. You don't have a net. You know, they're jumping up and they fall off and, you know, break their arm. You know, trampoline.
Yes,
you know, pools the same way. Hot tubs, another thing where with hot tubs.
I never knew that.
Hot tubs, they want to see a cover on it with a lock.
Okay.
Yep, somebody comes into your property, climbs into it, and, you know, a little kid. Pools, they require, you know, a locked ladder, a fenced yard if you have a fenced yard. So there's different requirements that I usually will go through with a client.
What would a locked ladder be?
Yeah. They have a locked ladder. Like if you're out in the country and there's not a whole lot, you know, people around you, there's ladders you can buy where it locks, where it's lifted up and they can't get the steps down to get in.
Oh.
So above ground pool.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay, so it's for an above ground pool.
I see. I was gonna say that almost seemed like I was thinking
underground pools are different.
I was thinking of the other one. Wouldn't that keep someone from getting out?
Yeah, no, that you're gonna need a fence around with a lock on it, underground pool. But above ground, they can have a locked ladder where they can't pull the ladder down to get in. You know, so it also depends on where they're located. You know, so there's a lot of different things that you have to look at. And I've had clients call me and say, well, my township said that pool's fine. And I'm like, well, again, your township is not paying for liability when somebody
tell them to pay the difference.
You know, so it's a lot different when you're going through your township for your insurance questions than you're going through your insurance agent for those questions. So I always tell people, you got to kind of stay in your lane, right? You know, I'm not going to go to, I always say, I'm not going to go to a brain surgeon to do a root canal on me. I'm going to go to a brain surgeon who, if I need brain surgery, I'm going to go to a dentist to do a root canal on me. So we all have our professions, right? And it's staying in that lane.
That's funny. That's so common. That seems evident to me the township has a certain set of things that they're looking at, but I guess I can see how when people get in that process, they don't really know what's going on, so they're looking to different people to help with some of those things. But it just is like, I don't think the township has no vested interest in your liabilities or anything. That's more of a code. It's code. They're making sure that they can check certain boxes that are.
Yeah, because they'll say galvanized plumbing is fine. Well,
right.
Exactly. Insurance carriers, it is not.
Yeah.
So when it comes to trampolines, we've got to have a net around it. Again, this all falls under your liability coverage on your home. And people always thought, my liability coverage covers me if something happens on my property. If somebody falls on my steps because it's wintertime, they're going to sue me. But your home liability coverage is wherever you are. So let's say you went to Colorado to go skiing and you come down a hill and you hit somebody. You injured me, I'm going to sue you. That's not going to fall on your auto liability coverages. It didn't happen in your vehicle. It's going to fall on your home liability coverages. Okay, so important to know what your liability coverages are for auto and home, and sometimes if you have a lot of assets, you have a business, you've got an expensive home. A lot of times I share with my clients, you got a 401k, a lot of times you might want to look at an umbrella that will protect you if your auto or your home is not enough. So when they exhaust out that, let's say go back to Colorado, that skiing incident, you had $100,000 on your home insurance liability, which is really low, just to tell you. So that person, I'm going to sue you for $250,000. Well, again, $100,000 checks going to be made out, and then you're stuck with $150,000. Well, you just exhausted out your home liability, but if you had an umbrella, then your umbrella kicks in and will pay the remaining balance. And you can have an umbrella, like $1 million umbrella policy, $200 million, whatever you believe is enough to cover your assets. Or your ASS. Or BETT.
Yeah. That's incredible. What about if you are just a renter? Does Renters
has liability coverages as well. So
we definitely have to check.
So
I have renters, but I don't know anything.
Again, go back to Colorado and you're skiing and you hit somebody, it's going to fall on your renter's liability. So on your home or renter's liability, the 3 or 4 main coverages you have is one is your dwelling A. How much is your house worth? What's your replacement cost? Okay, so if you bought the house for $250,000 and it's at 100% replacement cost, this is not your personal property, this is just your house, completely burns down. A lot of insurance companies, their replacement cost is 100% or 125%. Okay, I have some carriers, their replacement cost is 150%. So if your house is $250,000 and you have a particular insurance company that only pays 100%, you're going to get a $250,000 check. Okay, so I like our carriers because they go above and beyond. They're going to give you more of that dwelling aid. They're going to give you another 50%, especially with cost of goods, services today. It's needed. Materials, it's needed, right? So that's your A. Your B is going to be your other structures. Anything that's not attached to the house, okay? So your garage, if it's not attached, it falls under other structures. You have a pool with a deck around it, not attached, that's considered other structures. That's going to be 10% of your dwelling A. So if we go back to your home at $250,000, that means you have $25,000 for your other structures. For some people, that's not enough. And so as an insurance agent, you've got to ask the right questions. You've got to find out, hey, is your pool connected? Hey, do you have a pole barn that you've put up? Most people have pole barns now. And figure out, again, is that going to be enough? It's not enough, we're going to add more to it. We're going to add an endorsement to it and add more to protect those other structures. C is your personal property. So A, B, C. C is your personal property, which is usually 75% of your dwelling A. So I always tell people, if you turn your house upside down, turn your apartment upside down, and everything that falls out, besides your vehicles in your car, in your garage, you're going to get that. That's your personal property. The next is liability coverages. So that is liability if you're going to be sued. What do you have on your auto? What do you have in your home? So your home, I usually do $500,000 on a home, and then I'll do an umbrella policy for somebody for $1 million. And it can range depending on how much you're insuring. You can put, let's say you have an auto and home with one of my carriers, and you have a boat with Progressive. We sell Progressive as well. We can put all 3 of those under your umbrella. So it depends on how many policies that you have that you want to fall under your umbrella will depend on what your price is. If you have a youthful driver, higher risk, your umbrella is going to be a little bit higher, right?
Sure.
So that's going to be your liability, and then there's another coverage for medical. What are you willing to pay out to that person you hurt? This is your medical. And then another coverage is what's called loss of use. So loss of use is, I had a kitchen fire in my house. I have to relocate myself now until I can get back in the house. This is the money we're going to give you to relocate yourself to get back in. So those are really the key of a home policy. There's a lot more bells and whistles to it, but you want to make sure those are good for what you're looking for to cover your assets.
Well, I'm glad that you all broke that stuff down, and I hope the viewers is listening, especially all the homeowners out there, to check on your car insurance and your home insurance policies. Saying that, I feel like the reason I chose you to work with you and for you to be my representative for my car insurance is the same thing you pretty much doing on this show now. She pretty much came to me. She was very confident, and confidence is key with me. If you come and you know what you're talking about, you're able to relate to me and tell me a story, and you did that automatically. So that's kind of stood out to me. But I guess this is kind of a bounce question off all of us. What do you think, or why should people use specifically you for these services? What is it specifically about you or about us that kind of stand apart from our competitors and different things like that? I don't know who can necessarily answer that first.
I think we're all probably the same in most of those, and it's pretty much what you just said, is a level of confidence and a level of, a willingness to slow down and actually explain what it is and why it's important.
Yes, sir.
Because I would say with what I do, that's generally what most people miss. Somebody comes, I need a website. It becomes just like we were kind of talking about, I think, beforehand, where some realtors just kind of want to close the deal, just want to get it moving, want to get things over with. I don't really think that's the proper method to win long-term healthy business. I think that sometimes you do miss out on some business too, because some people almost just want you to be reactive and just give me something. I don't want to hear the whole
quality.
Right, exactly.
Instead of quantity.
Yes, exactly. And so I think that's kind of what makes all 3 of us probably pretty special, is that we take that slow down, take the time to do that, explain what it is, why it's important to you, and kind of put the ball in your court while also maybe making a suggestion or 2 that is just based on the experience we've had, pretty much, and kind of leaving it at that, and being personable and probably relatable along the way,
Agreed.
That's my thought.
I always share, I'm not the insurance stalker. If what you have is good, I'm going to say, stay where you are.
Yes,
and I said that to a gentleman this past week. Stay where you are, because he had a lot of activity on his auto policy. You're not getting surcharged as high as what I would be as a brand new carrier for you. Stay where you are. Let's wait till some of these things fall off, and then I'll meet back up with you again in 6 months to see where we're at. So, and I'll give some recommendations. If I can't write something, and currently right now there was a client that was referred from one of my clients, and I could not write this particular gentleman because he has a wood burner in an outbuilding. Okay, our carriers don't like wood burners. They'll do furnaces with thermostats, but a wood burner in an outbuilding for my carriers that we have several, it's a high risk. But I know another insurance agent who has different carriers than I do, and she has one that will write it. So I said, okay, I called the gentleman back. I said, is it okay if I pass your information to a friend of mine who's also an insurance agent who can write this for you? And so I think that speaks volumes.
Very true.
It really spoke volumes to the gal I passed this to, because I did this a couple of times to her, and she's like, I can't believe you're doing this to me. I'm giving you, but they're going to trust me who I'm passing them to you, and I trust you, right? So
don't screw it up, right?
Yeah, don't screw it up. Because she's got different independent carriers than I do.
Yeah,
we have one that's the same, but she's got different ones I don't have.
Sure.
Why I would say RTI would be the best place to give me an opportunity to do quoting is we have several different carriers. So I do the market shopping for you. We have a gal in our office. She is my service specialist, has been with them for 30 years.
Oh, wow.
She is very, very experienced. When you call our office, you're going to talk to the same people when you call. When you call a captive insurance company, a large insurance company, you don't know who's on the other end.
No.
So it's that personal touch that you get with RTI, and it's the fact that if there's something that's not going right with one of our carriers, we're fighting for you. We're on the phone saying, hey, we need to get. It's a representation. RTI has been around for 45 plus years. It started out with Gary Ringnalda, and then about 6 years ago, his two sons, Adam and Eric Ringnalda, purchased the business along with Mark TenHaken, one of their top producers. So these three gentlemen now have taken over and named it RTI, Ringnalda TenHaken Insurance. So it is a business that was based from home, grassroots, started from scratch.
That was interesting that you broke that down. I used to work in restoration many years ago, so I did work for. Are you familiar with ERS, the Electronics Restoration Service? I think it stands for. They're based in, I think, Grand Rapids.
Okay.
So they're a restoration company that just does electronics. I didn't work for ERS, but there was a company I worked for that was their main goal was to compete with ERS. So they took the approach of they weren't interested in content as it pertained to like the stuff in your kitchen drawers or your chairs and tables and things. They were interested in the way my boss put it was anything with a battery or a cable, pretty much. He was interested in, but that also meant appliances generally, refrigerators and stoves, things like that, because they're a lot of the like service master, serve pro at the time didn't want to deal with that kind of stuff because it was just it was always such an interesting dynamic to hear because we work with people with all sorts of different insurance companies. They're out of their house from 6 months to a year or sometimes more. That was a really eye-opening. I probably only did that for a year and a half, partly because it was just it's a difficult business to be a part of. I actually have a lot of respect for people that stick into that industry because it's sad. It's nice to be able to help people, but it's a really, really sad. You see a lot of sad things. You see people's houses in shambles. It's a devastating field in some sense to be in, but it was always really interesting to see how it was kind of consistently certain insurance companies that people would have coverage through that it just seemed like they were wrestling a lot with the insurance company and some were not, and that was kind of interesting. It stood out to me. I do believe State Farm was one that anytime we heard somebody had it, we're like, I hope they're doing okay. Auto owners tended to be one that was not a wrestler. They tended to just write the check and make things right. I think Citizens was a good one too. Citizens was a good one to work with.
That's one of my top ones.
They were usually very similar. They really didn't. And I think I have to imagine a big part of that is like some of the process they go through and keeping in touch with their clients, keeping in touch with what they have, keeping in touch with their coverage amounts, and checking base and those sorts of things. I think it seemed like some of the bigger, almost kind of like how you said some of the bigger companies that you call direct, and you just don't get to have that kind of personal relationship with. Those were the ones that did seem to have trouble when it came down to time to figure things out and get replacement and things like that. And so that was a very interesting job. I definitely couldn't do it for too long. It was just so difficult, but it was interesting to see that because you hope to never have to have an experience like that or know anybody that does. It's a very, very, very traumatizing, generally if I'm talking fires and floods and those sorts of things, specifically. There's the occasional lightning strike or something that wasn't too bad, but fires are just absolutely traumatizing. And then so I got some insight into kind of what you're talking about, the different, I never had names to them or anything, but your agents and adjusters referencing things a lot and homeowners going back and forth and trying to figure things out. And it was interesting to me to see, it was shocking in some sense that I mean, what we were there to do was analyze some of these things and see if they were okay to put back in the house, which I just thought, really, you know, it
like
was
up to code.
Yeah, well, even I mean, since we did like electronics and stuff, you know, we were or appliances, like we would tear apart appliances and inspect them, see if like soot got into them, test them to see if they were functioning, see if the whatever happened really affected it, because sometimes it would be, I guess, cheaper to do that and then put it back than it would be to go buy another one, which as a homeowner I'm not really sure how I feel about, but it all probably comes down to making sure that your policies are in a way that you're gonna have to think about those things, like if we have a fire, what kind of coverage do we want? Because if we only have 100% of A, let's say, and everything kind of comes down from that, right? It sounds like it's a percentage of that based on your other things. So the higher that number is, probably the better chance you're going to have that when it comes time for those things, it's like, just replace it. We don't want the old sooty TV back in the house. Like, we've got good coverage for a reason. Let's just go ahead and replace it. You know, but I think that was kind of the problem, is some people would take the cheapest option they could, and probably most people will be okay, because not every house has a fire. But when you do, it's like if you have that low end, that lower, that's probably not a good term, but cheaper insurance or lower coverage amounts, then you just
You're opening your
you have a terrible situation become 10 times worse because you're there.
Well, one of the things I also let my clients know too, with home insurance, you know, I had a friend who had a complete fire loss, and I was there that morning after it happened. I wasn't her insurance agent at the time, and right away you've got people after you, like, what was this? What? How much property did it? What? And so I said to her, it was eye-opening to me, because then I thought, you know what? I'm gonna start letting my clients know, when you get home insurance, go through each of your rooms and take pictures of what you have. At least give you some ideas of the things that you have. I have a gentleman who's got a lot of fishing poles, expensive fishing poles. I said, take a picture. You don't have to necessarily label them all, but at least you have an idea that it's going to give you a picture. Say, oh yeah, you know, that one, and put it in a fire safe in your house somewhere. I mean, one of the things we did one Christmas, my husband and I, is we bought all of our 4 kids a fire safe to have in their home for their documents. People thought we were nuts. Well, that ain't a Christmas gift. We're like, yeah, it is. You know, so I share that with my clients. You know, just go through your home and take pictures of each of your rooms. Open up your closet, take pictures. You don't have to do an itemized amount, because it's going to change, right? Constantly, but it gives you an idea. Another thing I always kind of coach with my clients as well, when they have a home claim question, okay? So here's what happens when you put a home claim in. Your home insurance is going to be surcharged for 5 years, okay? So, so if it is something, realize that you're a homeowner. There's going to be, you know, basic maintenance, right? Basic maintenance, right? So you don't want to claim things that are basic maintenance on a home claim, okay? So most people maybe have a $1,000 deductible or a $2,000 deductible, and let's say a tree falls and it hits the window and it breaks the window and does some damage to the window railing or the window sill, and you know it's going to cost them maybe $3,000 to replace it, and they have a $2,000 deductible. Well, you can put that claim in. They're going to send you a $1,000 check, but now you're going to get surcharged for 5 years on that claim.
Way more.
Okay, you're going to be paying more. Okay, so your home insurance is used for catastrophic claims. You know, people are paying. I've got clients that have, you know, $450,000 homes. They're paying maybe $900 a year. Well, $900 a year is covering your $450,000 home, 150% replacement cost. They don't want to see these small little claims come in.
No.
They want to see something that's 10,000, something major, you know. So you have to look at it that way too, and see, hey, is it important enough for me to put a claim in, or do I just need to say, hey, it's just part of owning a home. You know, so usually I'll have my clients call me. I'll walk them through that. They'll ask me, well, how much is my home insurance going to go up? I went, Give me a Bible, I'll tell you, I have no idea. Absolutely no idea. If I had a crystal ball and I can see that in the future, I'd let you know. But I actually have no idea. There's so much goes into rating a claim.
Agreed.
You know, I'm just saying that if you want, and ultimately, the consumer is always the decision maker, right? My client's always going to make the decision. I'm just here to coach you.
Yeah.
You know, so I always tell my clients too, you know, be careful when you're putting those claims in. A lot of times, if you have too many claims within, 2 or 3 years, they'll also say, you're gonna have to find someone else to insure you. You've got too much activity going on. So it's those catastrophic claims that you really need to look into and say, this is worth claiming. Yeah. The rest is just, I'm a homeowner, it's gonna happen.
Right. Yeah, and the example you made, I mean, let's say $1,000, I would almost be willing, it's like you don't know, but I'd almost be willing to bet that whatever they raise it to over the course of 5 years, $1,000 probably wasn't worth it. You probably just should have paid
it. It
for
really
it.
isn't. It really isn't. And for some people, they have to. They don't have that, and then that surcharge is stretched out over the 5 years, and they can handle that.
Yeah.
Some people, it's like, you know what, I'm not going to do that.
Save it for when you need it.
Yeah, put some money aside for a rainy day.
We always say 1 or 2%. I mean, 1 or 2% of your home's valued for maintenance and things like that is at the lowest amount, is a pretty good. It's a pretty good amount. If you're saving 1 or 2% of a $400,000 house per year, that's a good fund for if your water heater goes out or something. Even if you need a roof after 5 years, like you'll have a nice chunk of change to put towards that.
That's a good education.
You'll be surprised.
Yeah, I make that one a lot.
Homeowners simply don't save up. Save enough for car maintenance, home maintenance, any of those things because
they think they need to save more. And more is always good. Like the more you can save, obviously, the better.
But even if it's $25 a week, $50 a month,
is
you have something. So when it happens, you have a pinch in it. To say, hey, I got something. But
people's mindset is, I pay for insurance. I got a claim.
That's true.
I'm going to use it.
That is right.
And that's people's mindset. Again, the home insurance is for catastrophic claims, not for just regular maintenance or something that you're getting $1,000 check for after your deductibles paid. It's not designed for that. And when people do that, then that's when you start seeing home insurance increase, right?
Agreed.
So,
that's interesting.
What do you think would be the best advice for any viewers out here that kind of want to get into to your lane into insurance? What would be your best advice for anybody that's looking to seek your profession?
Well, I think they have to have a passion for wanting to care for others.
Okay.
And it's interesting because I went from Mary Kay, so makeup, to insurance. Okay, but both of them is service, and both of them is education. Makeup was educating women how to put makeup on. And I'm partially colorblind, so go figure. I recruited people like this because I kept saying, if I can do it, you can do it. And sure enough, okay, I'll sign up. So I think you have to have that mindset of, wanting to care for others, putting yourself in that position. If that was my home, how would I want it to be insured? I think you have to take yourself out of it and think of them, right? So, and be teachable. I see, when I get off a conversation with a new client, they're like, man, I never knew all of this. Nobody ever told me any of this. I just, pay my insurance bill and that's it. I didn't know all this. So, I think if you want to get in this type of industry and you want to set yourself apart from other insurance agents, be teachable to others in what you're passionate about. If you're passionate about caring for others, their assets, what they have, what they work so hard for, protecting that, then get into this industry, but you gotta have that type of heart, of service heart, right? You gotta be teachable, you gotta be coachable. If you're not teachable or coachable, you ain't gonna get very far. You gotta be able to understand a no isn't a no, a no is next. Or a no is who do you know? So there's lots of things that you have to learn in a, not even insurance, in a selling role, right? You're selling yourself, you're selling your product, but you've got to put yourself in a position where if I'm sitting on that end, I want the person teaching me about my insurance to know what they're talking about, to be passionate about it, and to care for my every need that I have.
Agreed. That's great advice. I try to take on that when I meet new realtors and different things like that. I think the challenge is a little bit, at least in real estate, it's about not what you know, it's who you know, right? It's that relationship building piece to where obviously when you're dealing with insurance, you're getting new clients and different things like that. You building those relationships. However, sometimes I go to a realtor and they're like, hey, I already got a home inspector. Even though my quality may be better, even though I have that passion for clients that their inspector don't really have that quality, they're still going to stick with them because they had that relationship with them.
Yeah, and that's really kind of sad. That to me, I feel that there's a lack of I don't know how to say it, a lack of respect of your business then. Do you know what I'm saying? You know, I think there's enough pieces in the pie for everyone.
That's right.
And there's nothing wrong with having somebody come in and provide the service, even though it's not the same go-to person you have.
That's right.
And that's why, you know, when I can't service someone, here, I got somebody who can.
Yeah.
You know, and that agent looks at me differently now. She's like, wow, I never ever had that experience before. You know, thank you. I think we need to get out of the mindset of, you know, hey, I got to fight for every business I get. I've got to have these certain relationships and no more. Well, I think you're missing out a lot then.
Agreed.
You know, so, and I think that particular person's only going to go so far.
Agreed.
I really do. You know, my dad told me something a long, long time ago. One of my directors, she wasn't always teachable sometimes, and my dad said to me, she's never going to go any farther than what she won't want to be taught.
That's right. That is very, very true. I'm right with you. Like I said, I feel that way, but obviously I can't come off that way when you meet a new realtor.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, well, I understand it, and you know, continue to pursue on and everything like that.
So let your action show. Let him on Facebook, on the Google, let that action show. Because if he sees all of that, or if she sees all of that, and she doesn't catch on, she's missing he or she realtor is missing a big portion of what can really help improve their business as well.
That's right.
You know?
Right. We appreciate that, Ms. Kathy, and everything. I want to say, like, you being the 7th guest on the show, I want to say you even gave us at least the most knowledge, especially from a personal level. Kind of with insurance, I feel like everybody has to deal with some form of insurance, been in some type of home wreck, car wreck, something to where you have
know somebody that has at the very least.
Yeah, everybody got an insurance story, so we appreciate all of that knowledge that you dropped on us. As we kind of go more towards the end of the show, we pretty much go more into like home maintenance. What is the under the rug moment of the month when it comes to homes? I know right now a big thing that's for me, and this is not necessarily pertaining to home inspections, but everybody right now is traveling a lot, right? Especially because it's summer vacation. A lot of people, especially our teachers, if you work in any form of education, you got everybody that's off work, and then you got all of these kids that's traveling. What are the things that you can do to simply prevent issues if you're going to be at your house, being away from your home for a long period of time? And I say that because some people come back home to leaks, to master disasters. They may get, when they're far away, they may end up getting a carbon monoxide leak, gas leak, fires. Any of those things can happen. It's like, what can you do? Can you simply make sure, if I know I'm going to be out of the country, out of the state, for a couple weeks, can I make sure my water is shut off? Can I make sure I got those carbon monoxide, those smoke alarms systems to where now at least if I know they go off, maybe they're smart and I got a system that goes to my phone that alerts me so I'm aware of what's going on in my home. And I think one of the big things that a lot of people don't have are those security systems, especially right now, like a ring system for example, something that we actually inserted in a place that we rent currently, but it's like, it's all for that peace of mind and security. We know when we leave the property, if anybody come in, we know who's coming in and different things like that. And even when you go to sleep, especially me being the man out of the household, having that protection and different things like that. So, do you guys think of any potential tips to give anybody, or things that even people don't even think about when they're leaving their property for long periods of times? Because I can't think anybody maybe shutting their water off when they leave their property.
We shut our water off, but take another step forward too is, power surges. So let's say you're gone and there's an electrical storm. And you left all of your appliances plugged in. You let your computer plugged in, your laptop plugged in. You come back and all of a sudden none of those are working anymore. So, even having a power surge, protector on it or unplug your appliances. I mean, I had a gentleman, one of my clients had a power surge and all of his appliances died. And so, that would be something that I would suggest, hey, definitely look at, just going around the house and unplugging everything, just to protect that in case there's a storm and a power surge happens, but we do turn off our water. I will tell you too, some of my carriers do give discounts if you have an alarm system on your house.
Okay.
So like
that's
a water,
really
like a water temperature gauge.
Yep, you can get all of that.
There's a discount for that. So some of my carriers provide discounts for that because again, it lowers your risk, right?
Oh wow.
Of something happening. So
those you can catch it quicker, I suppose.
Yeah, they can catch it quicker. So so if you're working with anybody, doing a home inspection, you can let them know, hey, check in with your home insurance company to find out, if you put in any type of system in, if you get a discount.
That's something that we're somewhat working on right now is the overall preventative system. So that might be something we'll talk about after the show and share those ideas with you and different things like that. Something that I guess that just came to mind, I know a lot of times when I go to houses and they have gas fireplaces, they keep the pilot lit. And if you're going from your house, you probably shouldn't do that. Especially in this winter, in the summertime, if you don't plan on using it, having that gas lit for months at a time and not using it. Not saying that something's gonna go wrong, but it's a possibility, forbid that something does. You got some issues on your hand. I remember a property, and I don't know, this may be end up something, something you putting something on your water pipes to be able to detect a leak or some pressure issues. I inspect the house, put a radar machine in the basement. I come back 48 hours later, I was telling you the story. The basement was flooded. A valve had broken on a hot water machine and flooded the entire basement. It was probably at least a good foot of water. When I got back to my truck, I had to change out my socks. My socks was completely wet. And I'm like, and I remember telling the client, I'm like, the hot water heater is like 20, 21 years old or whatever. I said, it's still working at this time. It was providing hot water. I said it's older, and then hypothetically, when I came back in 48 hours, I even could have been finished the radon because they had pretty much like ruined the machine and everything like that. So it's pretty crazy, but those are those unique stories and I told them it's a good thing you got a radon machine. What if nobody ever, because the house was vacant, so let's say nobody comes back to this house, you then move into this house, you get the key, and you walk into that basement. So it's kind of like a true blessing and a curse that they got a radon inspection, and this was literally me leaving out of town right before the holiday. So all of it kind of worked out in their favor and different things like that. But those are things that can happen when you don't maintain your hot water heater. It probably never been serviced or maintenance for 20 plus years. It was given out, a valve broke, and literally water was rushing out of it. So one of those things to think about.
Another suggestion too, because I'm the woman of the house, right? So I don't know where the water thing is. I don't know where any of it is. So my husband labeled everything. So in the basement, he's got it labeled, water, turn it this way. I mean, simple that anybody can do it, that if he's gone, something happens, I know what to do.
If you're panicking, you can
so having some of those basic things labeled, for us women that don't know where these things are in the basement.
I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't.
You wouldn't know either. I feel better now. Label it for you.
Yeah, you probably want to label it for me too.
But we don't know where all that kind of stuff is. So it would be something too. Something as simple as he's got tape on the wall with a sign, water. There it is. Turn it off. Here's, switch this when you need that. Here's the sub pump that you do this. It's just some basic instructions.
Sump pump is a really big one.
We have a sub pump. We have a sub pump.
Question, do you guys have an alarm system on your sump pump?
You know what? I don't. We probably should, because when we go on vacation, there's a chance that maybe we'll have a storm and the sub pump we have a generator.
That's right.
But that is something.
That's a really good backup too, because a lot of people don't have generators.
Yeah, we actually have 3 generators.
If I were to inspect approximately 250 to 300 houses a year, I would probably say maybe once, like this year alone, I only can remember one house, and that's more so recent, that had a generator. I did it this past Monday in Wyoming. I don't run into houses with generators at all.
Yeah, we have 3 generators. We live in a small town with a lot of clay.
That's right.
Okay, so when it rains, like if we know there's a storm coming, my husband gets that generator up and running, gets it ready. Some insurance companies, if there's a claim like that from a storm, your sub pump, some of them will say, well, what did you do to prevent it?
Yeah.
You're home, what did you do to prevent the sub pump from not working? Same thing if your refrigerator stops working. Well, what did you do to prevent losing all of your meat in your freezer? Yeah. You could have gotten a cooler, you could have gotten, so they're looking at also as what are you doing to prevent this from happening? So we always, if there's a storm coming and we know it's going to be bad, my husband's pulling up the generator and getting it ready just in case.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful right there. And it's crazy that you say that. Like, I was talking to my uncle. I had one walk my uncle Rick, matter of fact. It was crazy. He was like, man, me and Corbin was tearing up those chicken wings at our family reunion. So Corbin actually was the photographer of our family reunion. We ended up they did a head count of like 160 people. I had no idea that many people was going to show up to our family reunion, but Corbin came. We had a really good time, took some really good photos, and it ended up being a really good time. But him and my uncle met, I want to say like, probably
my 3rd or 4th time I've seen.
I want to say you guys got introduced when I kind of moved into the office almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So
shout out to Uncle Rick. He probably watches here and there. He's a good supporter, man.
That he is, man.
We worked hard. I think I caught him on like our 3rd plate. I said, "Wait, you had a few too." We sat down right at our 3rd plate of them. Yeah.
Must be good.
They were too good. Shout out to whoever made them. They were fantastic.
I think they got them from Sharks. It's a chicken spot on 44th and no, matter of fact, 42nd and Kalamazoo Street.
I don't have to remember that. They had some seasoning in them.
Really good. Really good. It's all in the batter, man.
And I wasn't invited. We missed it.
We had family from Detroit, Texas, Chicago, Atlanta. It was refreshing just to see everybody. It was cousins.
It was refreshing for me to see that a family that big could come together and from so many different places. Yeah, I almost welled up. I was like, these are all people from your family? Like, they had shirts and everything, Chandler reunion shirts. Like, this is beautiful.
Wow.
90% of those people had our bloodline. Obviously, you got the people that's married in and stuff like that. But,
that's incredible. I could feel the love in the air.
That's awesome.
Felt like I was a part of the family.
You definitely are, man. Like I said, my mom, my uncle, they both asked about you, man, and everybody. So, bro, you always invited me.
I just got to get a shirt for the next one.
Yeah, you got to get a shirt for the next one, man. That's for sure. And I felt bad. I feel like I should have brought my drone towards the end. At least with the fireworks. Were you there when they did fireworks? And they did fireworks? And maybe it would have been nice just to give an overall headshot.
Yeah.
I know they're talking about doing things in the future, so I'll be sure to do that
we gotta do
at the next one.
For sure.
That'd be really dope.
For sure.
So going into wrapping up the show, we typically end kind of like we begin the show, just with an overall goal and what we're looking forward to do. I know for myself, we graduated from that 250 project August 4th. It's been a long time. Like I said, I honestly was debating quitting at some point, but I told myself, I said, Brian, you're not a quitter.
No way.
So it was more so of the class environment, and I'm like, I don't like doing work outside of class. This here, me and Corbin can meet. I can say, bro, you do this, I do this. We come back together, meeting next week. Let's have some things to follow up on.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily homework, but when you have expectations, and I don't know what the word is, but when they give you that material to learn and study, it brought me back to college. And I'm like, I don't like being in this space. But I talked to I actually talked to a good friend of mine who I met in class by the name of Robert. I believe I don't think his last name is Brown, but he actually runs a consulting business, and he was in the Navy. He was like, Brian, and which I knew, and he reminded me, he said, Brian, it's okay to do things that you necessarily don't understand now, and you get the outcome out later. And when he said that to me, I said, brother, I needed to hear that. So shout out to everybody in the 250 Project class, Ty, Miss Zena, for putting together the class and constructing it, and all their classmates. Like I said earlier, they gave me the idea that I kind of point out to you and stuff like that in regards to home prevention, but graduating from there in a few weeks, and then continue bringing Andrew on board, getting those additional services. We'll actually have pool inspections, septic and well inspections, underground sprinkler inspections all here within the next month or so. So really bringing those on at the end of the year is really key for us, and then going into next year with all the things that we're doing for advertising and marketing purposes, I think we're going to hit a substantial growth mark. No ifs and buts about it next year, so that's just kind of my overall goal.
Yeah, I'm working on hiring somebody actually, so yeah, that's the first. We actually talked about that. I think just technically before the show we were talking for a little bit about, or maybe it was just the beginning. We were talking about business owners having a hard time relinquishing. Sometimes it's control. It's difficult. That's the hardest part, I think, to some degree, of being a business owner, is finding those areas where you do need to just say, this maybe isn't the role for me. And for me, it was like, it has been wearing just every hat, wearing too many hats. I can wear a lot of them pretty well, but you can only wear so many of them at a time, and you can only wear them for so long before it's just like, I've got to delegate. I just can only spread myself so thin. I'm actually probably in the long run making less because I only have so much time that gets tied up with a full project. And speaking specifically for like developing websites and that sort of thing, it is time consuming. It's time consuming chatting with people, it's time consuming kind of coming up with concepts. A lot of the stuff we do, planning and thinking and just brainstorming, is kind of where that whole process starts, and then comes into kind of getting information out of people and their services and what they offer. It is just a long, intensive process, and I've gone through, since you've known me, I've gone through phases of kind of increasing prices to alleviate some of that. That's definitely helped, but I have to take that next step and doing that a little bit more, treating it as a whole business, and then paying somebody or multiple people in the long run to do some of the things that I'm doing now. So I sat down with that person actually earlier this week. It went really well. Somebody who's actually remote, lives in Florida, about the same age as me. Actually, funny enough, is a police officer in Florida, but has a really interesting schedule where he can he works a lot for 1 week. I mean, they do like long 12-hour shifts for like 5 days and rack up a lot of hours, but then the next week they only work 2 days. So they kind of managed over 2 weeks to still have about 80 hours and sometimes even more, but then kind of have this every other week where it's almost like only working on the weekend as opposed to, kind of thing. I think it's Wednesday and Thursday, but nonetheless, I thought that's kind of interesting because I do kind of need somebody who, I don't have 30 or 40 hours a week to give somebody to sustain a full income, but I do probably have a certain amount per week or per month where somebody who's got a stable income but kind of wants to side hustle or something like that can ease into it. So we sat down earlier this week, and I think it went really well. I got a good feeling about this person. It's a friend of a friend. So far, I think they're ambitious, a lot like me, in that they kind of would rather get things done quicker and do a good job and get paid more for that. And I'm all for that, That's kind of how I like to do things too. So by next month, I guess, by the next episode, I should probably have an update on how that's going. Exactly. Yeah. So
part-time employee.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm looking forward to that. I think.
And then you're gonna see your business just soar.
I think so.
That happened to me when I was a Mary Kay sales director. I was also children's ministry director, and I was doing both. And I finally had to take a step of faith and said, okay, I'm going to step down from my children's ministry director position and just do Mary Kay full time. When I did that, I did Queen's Quarter sales 3 years in a row. It's like because I had more time. And I hired people to do postcards and because I cannot do it. I'm like, okay, am I gonna spend 3 weeks doing one stupid postcard, or am I gonna hire a gal to do it for me? It's gonna take her 10 minutes to do.
Yeah.
So I learned very quickly, if I want to move into this business and make it a business, I need people that are gifted in things I'm not.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna go out and pay her to do it. And it's going to cost me maybe, selling one lipstick is going to save me 3 weeks of a postcard.
Yeah.
Selling one lipstick and I can pay her.
That is exactly where I'm at. If I can save even 3 hours, if I can give somebody else 3 hours, it might save me 10 for what I can have them do. If I can have them do that efficiently, and I have to, because it's just little things take so much time. And so I'm hopeful that I can just kind of keep working that into, figuring out kind of how that'll work. What I do is I just do so much that it is a little difficult, and I think I spend too much time trying to, kind of telling myself, like, I gotta find another me. I don't really need to find another me. In fact, I started to think I need to find somebody who doesn't know anything, that it just has an ambition and a willingness to learn, because if I can actually kind of start somebody from scratch on what I want to start them on, I can kind of give them a certain amount of knowledge and say, you go for it. That person might even learn how to do some of those things better than I can do now, and just become especially good at that one thing, let's say, just blocking out pages or just doing certain things that it's bittersweet, because some of the work that I'm going to end up giving off I actually kind of enjoy, but I just have to decide what takes up the most of my time, what can I give up, what can I teach somebody to do, and kind of help them avoid the things that I had to learn the hard way. So maybe save them some time on that and just kind of get them off quicker. And so, it all just kind of has come together in the last couple of weeks between my own thoughts and finding the right person. And so just kind of trying to run with it, put some faith in it, and happy about it right now. So we'll see. I'm gonna be testing it, over the next couple of weeks. So that'll be interesting for sure. And I'm also at a point now, just coincidentally, in the sense of it coming together, where financially I've kind of built up enough of a padding to where that was another problem I had, is just obviously starting out, sometimes you're making just enough to pay the bills, and you increase the price a little bit so you can get off of that. And now I've got a little bit set aside so that I can, a lot of what I do is a net 30 payment or something like that. I don't necessarily get paid right on the spot or have to do deposits or things like that. So now I'm actually in a place where I can afford to say, hey, so-and-so, I can get you paid today, or I can get you paid this week. I just need help with this. Here you go, just wave it in front of him and say,
feed it to him and then go out and do what you need to pay him.
Yeah, keep track of that, bill it later, and know that that's just going to be fine. I don't have to worry about covering my own bills or anything, because I'm paying someone else. So that's another concern. So yeah, everything all at the right time has finally come together. So hopefully that'll work out. And even if it doesn't, I'm sure I can find somebody that does. But I got a good feeling about this person, so it's gonna be good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How about you, Miss Kathy?
Well, I just need to find some more business out there. So like I said, I really have a passion to start an account for my 2 grandkids. Well, there's 3 of them, but 2 of them are going to need more special care. So I'm a kind of very loyal person. I have one mortgage loan officer, and you know who it is. And I need to find more. Jen Aldering. From Trenstone now. So she said, you got to get more mortgage people, and I feel like, but you're my gal, but she's not going to give me all the business all the time, but so I need to get past that. And she said that you got to find more mortgage people. So that's my goal, is to get out there and find more mortgage people. And
I'm sure probably our goals can align in that in some sense over the next, we're all kind of looking to connect. Well, at least you two especially are looking to connect with some of the same people. So I'm sure that'll come together.
Let the viewers know how they can contact you. Just, your phone number, email, any websites, or...
Well, I have a Facebook page that I actually hired somebody to do for me, because that is not my thing. It takes time. Well, she does it all. She posts for me. So I do have a Facebook page. It's Kathy Ulberg at Ringnalda TenHaken Insurance. So there's a Facebook page. My cell phone number is area code 616-218-0605. We do have actually 3 locations. We have an office in Kentwood on Broadmoor. We have an office in Holland. And thank goodness I have an office at home. So that's where I've been working. I'm like, just let me do my thing. I don't want to sit with a bunch of people in an office. I just want to do my thing. So I have an office in my home that's all set up. So,
Wonderful.
but there's a couple emails. I'll just give you my Grand Rapids one. It's easier. It's Kathy with a K at rtigrandrapids.com.
Very easy. Yeah.
So we do have a website. You can go on our website with Ringnalda TenHaken Insurance. If you're looking for a quote, it's going to say, how were you recommended? Just hit that little button and say, Kathy Ulberg. Otherwise, it'll get credit for it.
Yeah.
So just make sure that you let them know how you found RTI on their website. So,
we would like to say thank you again for joining us on the show and being our special guest and being a part of our 8th episode. So thank you again, Ms. Kathy.
Yeah.
And that is our.